My son skipped his own mother's funeral just to celebrate his wife's birthday. The very next day, he showed up acting like nothing happened and came to me with a favor to ask. But I took the last step he did not expect. I stood there in my living room, watching him smile. That same smile he'd used since he was 12 when he wanted something. The same manipulation, just wearing a better suit now. "Dad, I know things have been difficult," he said. Difficult. That's what he called it. His mother, my wife of 37 years, was in the ground 3 days ago. The funeral home had called twice asking where he was. I'd made excuses, said he was stuck in traffic, said there was an emergency, lied to spare him embarrassment he didn't deserve to be spared from. "I need to explain about the funeral," he continued. "Don't." "Dad, please. It was Sarah's 30th birthday. We'd planned this big party for months. The deposits were non-refundable." I looked at him. Really looked. When had my son become this? When had the boy who used to cry at sad movies turned into a man who weighed his wife's birthday party against his mother's funeral and chose the party? "Get out," I said. "Dad, be reasonable. Mom would have understood. She always understood." That was true. Margaret understood too much, forgave too much, let our children walk all over her with their demands and their needs and their constant taking. I'd enabled it too, kept the peace, wrote the checks, fixed their problems. Not anymore. I said get out. He left. But 2 weeks later, he was back. This time with an invitation. The wedding was a lavish affair. 200 guests at the country club, ice sculptures, a 12-piece band, open bar with top-shelf liquor, filet mignon and lobster tail for dinner, a 7-tier cake that cost more than my first car. I paid for half of it, like the fool I was. Stood there in my rented tuxedo, playing the role of proud father while my wife's grave was still fresh. Sarah cornered me during the reception. She'd had too much champagne. Her eyes were bright with alcohol and something else. Entitlement, maybe. Or greed. The kind of greed that comes from growing up with parents who gave her everything and a husband who continued the tradition. "We need to talk about the apartment," she said. "I owned a second property downtown. A nice place, 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, river view from the balcony. I'd bought it as an investment years ago when the market was down. But lately, I'd been thinking of moving there. Getting away from the house full of Margaret's ghost. Her clothes still hung in the closet. Her reading glasses still sat on the nightstand. Her coffee mug still waited in the cabinet, the one that said, "World's Best Mom," that the kids had given her 20 years ago, and she'd never had the heart to replace. "What about it?" I asked. "We want it. For us. You don't need 2 places. You're one person. We're starting a family. We need the space." "I'm planning to move there." "That's ridiculous. You're too old to be living downtown. All those stairs, the noise, the traffic. You need to be somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. The house is perfect for you." "The apartment doesn't have stairs. It has an elevator, and I like the noise and traffic." "Don't be difficult, you know what I mean. Give us the keys." The band was playing something loud and upbeat. People were dancing, laughing, having a wonderful time at the wedding I'd helped pay for. Nobody was paying attention to us in the corner by the bar. "No," I said. Her face changed. The pretty mask slipped, and I saw what was underneath. Something cold, something mean, something that had probably always been there but hidden under good manners and careful smiles. "Give me the keys." I said no. She slapped me, hard. The sound cracked across the noise of the party like a gunshot. My head snapped to the side. Pain bloomed across my cheek. Conversation stopped. The music kept playing, but people stopped dancing. Heads turned, mouths opened in shock. My son rushed over from across the room where he'd been talking to his groomsmen. "What happened?" "Your father is being difficult," Sarah said. She wasn't even embarrassed. Didn't even have the decency to pretend it was an accident. just stood there, hand still raised slightly, like she might hit me again if I didn't cooperate. Dad, just give her the keys. Don't make a scene at our wedding. I looked at my son, at the people watching, at Sarah's smug face, at the life I'd built that had somehow produced this moment, this humiliation, this betrayal. No, I said again. My son's jaw tightened. Dad, come on. Be reasonable. We're family. Family helps each other. Is that what we are? Family? What's that supposed to mean? It means your mother is lifeless and you didn't come to her funeral. It means I'm standing here with my face burning from where your wife just hit me and you're taking her side. It means I don't recognize you anymore and I'm not sure I ever really knew you at all. Then the main doors of the ballroom opened. A man walked in. Old, maybe 75, thin to the point of frail, wearing a cheap suit that didn't fit right, the kind you buy off the rack at a discount store when you need something formal but don't have much money. He had gray hair and weathered skin and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much suffering. He stood in the doorway, looking around at the crowd of well-dressed people with their expensive watches and designer dresses. I didn't recognize him, but everyone else did. My daughter started crying first. She was standing near the cake table, and the sound that came out of her was almost a wail. Then Sarah's parents. Her mother grabbed her husband's arm and started sobbing. Then more people. Within seconds, half the room was in tears. Women covering their mouths, men looking away and blinking hard. The band stopped playing. Silence fell like a weight. The old man just stood there, scanning faces, looking for someone specific. His eyes found mine. David Thompson, he said, his voice carried across the silent ballroom. We need to talk. I had no idea who he was, but the way people were reacting, the way my son had gone pale, the way Sarah's father looked like he might be sick, told me everything I needed to know. This was connected to something, some old debt, some buried secret, some skeleton that had just walked out of someone's closet and into this wedding reception, and whatever it was about to explode. The old man's name was Robert Chen. He sat across from me in my study 3 days after the wedding. My son and Sarah had called 16 times, 19 texts, 4 voicemails. I hadn't answered any of them. You don't remember me, Robert said. It wasn't a question. No. 1987, the Patterson case. You represented Consolidated Industries in a wrongful termination lawsuit. I did remember that. A messy lawsuit, a family destroyed. The company had fired a mid-level manager for supposed embezzlement. The evidence was questionable, but I'd been a young lawyer then, hungry and ambitious, willing to use every trick in the book to win. And I'd won. The jury found for my client. The manager lost his job, his pension, his health insurance, his reputation. Everything. You represented the company that fired my son, Robert said. Thomas Chen. He was 42 years old. Worked for them for 18 years. They accused him of stealing $50,000 from a client account. He didn't do it, but you convinced the jury he did. I'm sorry for what happened to your son, but I was doing my job. I presented the evidence the company gave me. The jury made their decision. The evidence was fabricated. You knew it was fabricated. Your client told you it was fabricated, but you used it anyway because you wanted to win. I wanted to deny it. Wanted to say he was wrong. But the truth was, I didn't know for sure. Hadn't wanted to know. Had learned early in my career that the less you know about your client's activities, the easier it is to defend them with a clear conscience. That was almost 40 years ago, I said. My son lost everything. His pension, his health insurance, his savings fighting the lawsuit. He couldn't get another job in finance. Word spread. People believed the accusations. He ended up working as a night janitor at a grocery store. Minimum wage. No benefits. I'm sorry. He died 2 years after the trial. Heart attack. He'd been having chest pains for months but couldn't afford to see a doctor. Couldn't afford anything. He was 44 years old. Robert's voice was flat. emotionless, like he'd told this story so many times that it had lost all feeling. Or maybe like the feeling was so deep that showing it would break him apart. "I'm very sorry for your loss," I said, "but I don't understand why you're here now, why you came to my son's wedding, why you're sitting in my study. Because I kept tabs on you, watched your career, watched you get rich off cases like mine, watched you build this big house and this perfect life, watched your children grow up with every advantage my son never had. If you came here for revenge, you're 40 years too late. I didn't come for revenge. I came to offer you something." "What?" "A chance to understand what you did to me, what your son is doing to you, and how to make him pay for it. I should have thrown him out, should have called the police, should have told him to take his bitterness and his pain and his lifeless son and get out of my house, but I didn't, because he was right. My son was doing to me exactly what I'd done to Robert Chen, taking everything, destroying everything, leaving nothing but wreckage behind." "I'm listening," I said. Robert smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who'd spent 40 years waiting for this moment and finally had it within his grasp. "I've spent decades watching people like you, learning how they think, how they operate, how they destroy people using the legal system and social pressure and money and power. I know exactly how to tear someone's life apart using those same tools, legal, clean, devastating, and I can teach you." "Why would you help me?" "Because I want to watch you do to your son what you did to mine. I want to see the man who destroyed my family destroy his own. Poetic justice, the universe balancing its books. That's sick. Maybe, but you're still sitting here listening, which means part of you wants exactly what I'm offering." He was right about that too. I did want it. Wanted to hurt my son the way he'd hurt me. Wanted to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. Wanted him to understand, finally, that actions have consequences. We talked for 4 hours. By the end, I had a plan. A roadmap for destroying my son's life piece by piece. Legal, methodical, thorough. And it started with finding out exactly what secrets my son was hiding. I hired a private investigator named Mitchell Grant, former FBI agent. 20 years in the bureau working white-collar crime before he retired and went private. He was expensive. $500 an hour plus expenses. I didn't care. I had money. More than I needed. More than I could spend in whatever years I had left. Might as well put it to good use. "What exactly am I looking for?" Mitchell asked. We met at his office, a small space above a dry cleaner in a strip mall on the edge of town. The walls were covered with filing cabinets and the desk was buried under papers, and the whole place smelled like stale coffee. Everything, financial records, communications, personal life, business dealings. I want to know every secret my son has, every corner he's cut, every lie he's told, every rule he's broken. This is about the wedding, isn't it? The slap, I heard about it, small town, word travels. This is about a lot more than a wedding. Must be if you're willing to spend this kind of money. You know what you're doing could destroy your relationship with your son, permanently. What relationship? The one where he uses me as an ATM? The one where he skipped his mother's funeral? The one where he let his wife assault me in front of 200 people? That relationship is already destroyed. Mitchell studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, give me 2 weeks. I'll have a preliminary report. He worked fast, efficient, professional. Within 10 days, he called and asked to meet at a diner outside of town where nobody knew us. He slid a folder across the table. It was thick. I opened it and started reading. Your son is in trouble, Mitchell said quietly. He's been cooking his books, not a lot, but enough. Skimming from client accounts to fund personal expenses. How much? About $250,000 over 3 years. Small amounts each time. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Hard to notice unless you're specifically looking for it. But it's there. I kept reading. Bank statements, account transfers, A pattern of small withdrawals that added up to a substantial sum. What else? His wife. She's having an affair. I looked up. With who? James Hartford, local real estate developer. Big guy in town, married, 2 kids, sits on the city council, goes to church every Sunday, and he's been sleeping with your daughter-in-law for about 8 months. James Hartford. I knew him. Knew his wife Patricia, too. They attended the same church as Sarah's parents. Sat in the front row every week. Sang in the choir. Donated generously to every charity drive. There's more, Mitchell said. Hartford's been funneling money through your son's consulting firm. Using it as a tax shelter. Off-the-books transactions. If anyone looks too close, they'll both go down. Your son for the embezzlement and the illegal tax scheme. Hartford for tax fraud and possibly money laundering depending on where that money came from originally. I kept reading. Photos of Sarah and James together, entering a hotel, leaving separately, timestamps, dates, a clear pattern of deception. There's also evidence that your son lied on his business loan applications, Mitchell continued. Inflated his revenue numbers, understated his debts. If the bank found out, they could call the loans, force him into bankruptcy. Perfect. Better than perfect. My son had built his entire life on a foundation of lies and theft and deception. One good push, and the whole thing would collapse. Keep digging, I said. I want everything. Every detail, every secret, every mistake. I want to know things about my son that he doesn't even remember doing. How far are you willing to take this? All the way, as far as it goes. I want to destroy him. Mitchell nodded slowly. All right, but understand something. Once you start down this road, there's no going back. You'll lose your son. Maybe your daughter too. Maybe everyone. People don't forgive this kind of thing. I know. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with it. Over the next 6 weeks, Mitchell compiled a file that could destroy my son's life completely. Bank records showing the embezzlement in detail. Photos and video of Sarah's affair with James Hartford. Email chains proving the tax fraud scheme. Evidence of the false loan applications. Even proof that my son had bribed a city inspector to approve some questionable work on a property he was developing. Everything I needed to take him apart piece by piece. But I wasn't ready to use it yet. I needed the timing to be right. Needed them to feel safe first, comfortable, confident that they'd gotten away with humiliating me at the wedding, that I was just a weak old man who couldn't stand up to his own family, that they could do whatever they wanted, and I'd just take it. So I played the role, answered their calls eventually, made excuses for not answering earlier, said I'd been sick, said I'd been thinking, said I understood they were young and starting their lives and I shouldn't stand in the way. I attended family dinners, smiled, nodded, made small talk, watched Sarah talk about their plans to renovate their apartment downtown, the one I still hadn't given them keys to, listened to my son discuss his business expansion, his big plans, his bright future, all built on sand, on lies, on stolen money and false documents and secrets that would destroy him if they came to light. And I knew every single one of those secrets. I watched. I waited. I planned. And I let them think they'd won. Robert Chen called me every week, checking in, making sure I hadn't lost my nerve. "You're doing well," he said during one call. "The waiting is the hardest part, the temptation to move too soon, to strike before you're ready." "I'm ready." "No, you're not. Not yet. You need them completely confident, completely certain that you've accepted your place in their world, that you're just the old man who writes checks and keeps his mouth shut." "How long?" "Until they ask for something big, something outrageous, something that shows they think they own you completely. Then you'll know it's time." "And what if they never ask?" "They will. People like that always do. Greed has no bottom. They'll keep taking until there's nothing left to take. Or until you stop them." He was right. 3 months after the wedding, my son came to me with a business proposal. "I'm expanding the firm," my son said. We were in my study again. Sunday afternoon. He loved this room, loved the mahogany desk and the leather chairs and the wall of law books that I'd collected over 40 years of practice. Loved what it represented. Success, power, respect. Everything he wanted for himself but hadn't earned. Congratulations, I said. I need capital, about $500,000. I kept my face neutral, interested but not eager. That's a substantial amount of money. I know, but I've got major clients lined up, Fortune 500 companies. This expansion will triple my revenue within 2 years, maybe quadruple it. I'll be running one of the biggest financial consulting firms in the region. Why come to me? Banks exist for this kind of thing. Banks ask too many questions. They want business plans and projections and collateral. They want to examine every aspect of my operation. Your family. You understand that sometimes opportunities move faster than paperwork. Sometimes you have to strike while the iron is hot. What I understood was that the banks had probably already turned him down. That his books wouldn't survive serious scrutiny. That he was desperate and running out of options and thought he could manipulate his old man into writing a check without asking uncomfortable questions. What's in it for me? I asked. 20% return, guaranteed. Within 2 years you'll have your money back plus $100,000, risk-free. Nothing is guaranteed, nothing is risk-free. He knew that, I knew that. But he was betting I was too old and too lonely and too desperate for his approval to care about the risk. Let me think about it, I said. Dad, I need an answer soon. This opportunity won't wait. I've got investors lined up, but I'm short on the capital I need to close the deal. If I don't move now, someone else will and I'll miss my chance. How soon? This week. By Friday at the latest. That's not much time to make a decision about $500,000. I know, but that's how business works sometimes. Fast decisions. Bold moves. Fortune favors the brave. Fortune favors the prepared, and I need time to review your business plan, your financials, your client list, the usual due diligence. His jaw tightened. I don't have time for due diligence. I need a yes or no. Are you going to help me or not? I'll let you know by Friday. He left angry, frustrated, probably thinking I was just a stubborn old man who didn't understand how modern business worked. Good. Let him think that. Sarah called that night. 10:30. Late enough that she'd probably been drinking. Her voice had that sharp edge that alcohol gives some people. Not slurred, just mean. What's your problem? She said. No hello, no pleasantries, just straight to the attack. Excuse me? Your son comes to you with a legitimate business opportunity, and you blow him off. Treat him like some kind of criminal who needs to be investigated. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? We include you in our lives. We invite you to dinners. We make time for you even though you're difficult and demanding and, frankly, kind of depressing to be around since Margaret died. How generous of you. Don't be sarcastic. You're bitter and alone and you're taking it out on us. We're trying to build a life here and all you do is put obstacles in our way. Is that what you think? That I'm putting obstacles in your way? It's what I know. You've been different since Margaret died. Cold, distant, like you blame us for something. Well, newsflash, old man. Cancer did. And we're not going to spend the rest of our lives walking on eggshells around you because you're sad. Are you finished? Give us the money. Give us the apartment. Stop making everything so difficult. Or you're going to end up alone in that big house with nobody who cares whether you live or die. She hung up. I sat there in the dark study, listening to the dial tone. Then I called Mitchell. It's time, I said. You sure? I'm sure. They think they own me. Think they can threaten me and manipulate me and I'll just roll over. It's time to show them what happens when you push too hard. Where do you want to start? The IRS. Trigger an audit on my son's business. Make it look routine, just a random compliance check. But make sure they look at everything, every account, every transaction. every questionable entry. That'll take some doing. I know some people, but the IRS doesn't just audit on request. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen. All right, what else? James Hartford's wife. She needs to know about the affair, but it can't come from us. It needs to look like she found out naturally. Can you arrange that? I can drop some hints to the right people. Small town like this, word travels fast. Give me a couple weeks. Good. And the bank. The one that gave my son his business loans. They need to know he lied on his applications. Again, it can't trace back to us. Just an anonymous tip that maybe they should verify his financial statements. You're going to destroy him, Mitchell said quietly. Yes. And you're absolutely certain this is what you want? This is what he earned, every bit of it. Now let's give it to him. The IRS audit notice arrived at my son's office on a Tuesday morning 2 weeks later. Standard government letter. Very official. Very scary if you're a small business owner with questionable books. Random audit, the letter said. Routine compliance check. Nothing to worry about if your records are in order. But my son's records were not in order, and he knew it. He called me that afternoon. His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the fear underneath. Dad, I need your legal advice. What's wrong? I'm being audited. IRS. They want 3 years of records. Every account, every transaction, every receipt, everything. That's concerning. Is there anything they might find that would be problematic? Pause. Long enough that I could hear him weighing options, wondering how much to tell me, wondering if I'd help him or judge him. No, of course not. Everything's above board. But audits are expensive, time-consuming, disruptive. I need to hire a tax attorney, someone who knows how to deal with the IRS. I can recommend someone. I was hoping you'd represent me, like old times. Remember when I had that issue in college and you fixed it? The plagiarism thing? You made it go away. You could do the same thing here. Old times. When I'd fixed his college plagiarism problem by threatening to sue the university. When I'd gotten him out of that DUI by finding a technicality in the breathalyzer calibration. When I'd made every problem disappear because that's what fathers do. That's what I'd taught him fathers do. I'm retired, I said. Please. I can't afford a big firm right now. Cash flow is tight. I've got expenses piling up. And if I don't get this expansion funding, I'm going to be in real trouble. I thought business was good. You wanted $500,000 for expansion. Business is fine, great. But cash flow is temporarily tight. You know how it is. Money's tied up in accounts receivable. Big payments coming in, but not here yet. Lies. All lies. But delivered smoothly, confidently, the way I'd taught him to lie when we practiced for his court date after the DUI. I'll think about it, I said. Dad, I need an answer. The IRS wants my records by the end of the month. That's 12 days. I need a lawyer now. Then hire one. I'm your son. I know who you are. Then help me, please. I said I'll think about it. I hung up. Let him stew. Let him worry. Let him realize that this time, maybe Dad wasn't going to swoop in and save him. The audit ground forward. My son hired a tax attorney, a good one, expensive. $800 an hour. But necessary when you have books that don't match reality and an auditor who's actually looking at them. The attorney found exactly what I knew he'd find: discrepancies, questionable deductions, personal expenses run through the business account, income that appeared and disappeared in ways that suggested money laundering or fraud or at minimum tax evasion. Nothing criminal yet, not quite, but enough to trigger penalties and interest and additional scrutiny and the kind of attention that makes small business owners very nervous. Then James Hartford's wife found out about the affair. It happened at the grocery store. Patricia Hartford was shopping, bumped into a friend. The friend, who'd heard rumors, decided to be helpful, mentioned seeing James's car at a hotel downtown, the one where business travelers stay when they're passing through. Odd place for a city councilman to be in the middle of the day. especially odd that he seemed to be there regularly. Even more odd that Sarah Thompson's car was often in the same parking lot at the same times. Just information, just facts, just a concerned friend making sure Patricia knew what everyone else seemed to know already. Patricia hired her own private investigator, got her own photos, her own proof, her own evidence of betrayal. She filed for divorce on a Thursday. The papers were served to James at his office. Very public, very humiliating. His secretary signed for them. Word spread immediately. By Friday, everyone knew. By Saturday, it was the only thing anyone in town was talking about. By Sunday, James Hartford was sitting in the back of the church instead of the front row. Sarah and my son were conspicuously absent. The divorce filing named Sarah as the other woman, listed times and dates and hotel rooms, made it very clear that this wasn't a marriage that had simply grown apart. This was adultery, betrayal, public humiliation for everyone involved. Sarah's parents stopped speaking to her, wouldn't answer her calls, changed their locks, made it clear that as far as they were concerned, their daughter had shamed them, and they wanted nothing to do with her. Sarah's friends stopped calling. The women's charity board she sat on asked for her resignation. The book club she attended uninvited her from future meetings. The yoga studio where she taught twice a week suggested she might be more comfortable somewhere else. Small-town justice, brutal and efficient. My son tried to support her, told her it would blow over, told her people would forget, told her they'd get through this together. They didn't forget. They never forget. Not in towns like this. Then the real estate deal fell apart. James Hartford, desperately trying to salvage his marriage and his reputation, cut all ties with my son's firm, pulled his money out, canceled the tax shelter arrangement, left my son scrambling to cover the shortfall and explain where that money had gone and how he'd been using it. That's when the embezzlement came to light. One of my son's clients, a retired engineer with too much time on his hands, was doing a routine review of his investment account. Noticed some irregularities, small transfers out and then back in. Timing didn't quite make sense. Amounts didn't quite match what he'd authorized. He called my son's office, asked questions, got vague answers, got annoyed, asked more questions, got frustrated. Hired a forensic accountant to review his entire account history. The forensic accountant found everything: the skimming, the unauthorized transfers, the pattern of theft spread across not just this client, but a dozen others. $250,000 over 3 years. Small amounts from each client. Just enough that nobody noticed. Just enough to fund my son's lifestyle and his wife's shopping and the illusion of success that kept new clients coming. The client filed a complaint with the state licensing board, then hired a lawyer. Then the other clients found out and hired their own lawyers. Then the police got involved. Within 6 weeks, my son's life was on fire. The audit, the affair, the embezzlement accusations, the potential criminal charges, everything happening at once. Everything collapsing together, and I watched it all from a distance, calm, detached, satisfied. This was just the beginning. My son showed up at my house at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. He'd been drinking, not falling down drunk, but enough that I could smell it. His tie was loose and his shirt was untucked, and his eyes were red and desperate. "Dad, I need help. Real help. Not advice, not lawyers. You. I need you to fix this." I let him in, made coffee even though he probably didn't need caffeine on top of whatever he'd been drinking. Let him pace around my kitchen while the pot brewed. "They're saying I stole from my clients. It's not true. I borrowed. I was going to pay it back. It was just temporary. Just to smooth out cash flow. That's not stealing. That's business. Borrowing without permission is stealing. Don't lawyer me right now. I don't need a lawyer. I need my father. I need you to tell me how to fix this. How to make it go away. Like you always do. I can't make this go away. This is too big. Too public. Too many people involved. Yes, you can. You're David Thompson. You fixed the Patterson case. You won cases everybody said were unwinnable. You can fix this. The Patterson case, Robert Chen's son, the fabricated evidence, the destroyed life. That's what my son admired about me. My ability to win by any means necessary, my willingness to destroy people to get what I wanted. I'd taught him that. Taught him that winning was all that mattered. That ethics were for people who couldn't afford lawyers. That rules were for people without connections. And now he expected me to use those same tactics to save him. "Where's Sarah?" I asked. "Gone. Went to stay with her sister in Vermont. Says she can't handle the stress. Can you believe that? I'm the one facing criminal charges and she can't handle the stress." Criminal charges? The DA's office is investigating. The forensic accountant referred the case to them. They're talking about wire fraud, embezzlement, maybe money laundering because of the Hartford thing. I could go to prison, Dad. Actual prison. He started crying, not quiet tears, loud gasping sobs, the kind of crying that comes from fear so deep it overwhelms everything else. I watched him, felt nothing, no sympathy, no urge to comfort him, no fatherly instinct to protect my child from consequences. Just cold satisfaction that the plan was working. "You did this," he said finally. His tears stopped. His voice went flat. "You knew about the audit, about James, about everything, and you didn't warn me. Why would I warn you? Because I'm your son. You're my son who skipped his mother's funeral, who let his wife slap me at his wedding, who treats me like an ATM machine, who lies and steals and cheats and expects me to clean up his messes. What exactly do I owe you?" "Everything. I'm your child. You owe me everything. I gave you everything. A good home, a good education, every advantage, every opportunity, and you used it all to become this. A thief, a liar, a man with no honor and no integrity and no respect for anyone including himself." He stood up, coffee cup shaking in his hand. For a moment I thought he might throw it, might attack me, might finally show some real emotion instead of the calculated manipulation he'd been using his whole life. Instead, he set it down carefully on the counter. "You're vindictive and cruel," he said quietly. "I'm a father who finally opened his eyes and saw what his son really is. You'll regret this. I regret a lot of things. This isn't one of them." He left, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I heard his car start and the tires squeal as he pulled out of the driveway too fast. I cleaned up the coffee cups, washed them and dried them and put them back in the cabinet. Went to bed, slept better than I had in months. The next morning his lawyer called, wanted to know if I'd testify as a character witness when the case went to trial. "No," I said. "Mr. Thompson, your son needs you. The jury will want to see that he has family support, that he's not just some criminal, that he's a good man who made mistakes. Your testimony could make the difference between probation and prison time." "Then he'll go to prison." "Sir, I understand you're upset about some family issues, but this is serious. This is your son's life." "I'm aware of what it is, and my answer is no. I won't lie for him. I won't stand up in court and tell a jury he's a good man when he's not. I won't help him avoid consequences he's earned." "You're really going to let your own son go to prison?" "I'm going to let my son face the results of his own choices. There's a difference." The lawyer hung up. Probably thought I was the worst father in the world. Maybe I was. I didn't particularly care. The state bar suspended my son's business license pending the investigation. His clients fled like rats from a sinking ship. His employees quit. Nobody wants to work for a company under criminal investigation. Nobody wants their name associated with fraud and embezzlement and possible prison time. Within 3 weeks, his consulting firm was lifeless. Office closed, phone disconnected, website taken down, 10 years of work gone like it had never existed. He tried to liquidate assets to cover the stolen money, tried to make restitution to his clients, show the prosecutor he was taking responsibility, but the math didn't work. He was underwater, debts exceeding assets by a huge margin. The house had a mortgage, The cars had loans, the furniture was leased, everything was leveraged, everything was borrowed, nothing was actually his. Bankruptcy was inevitable. Sarah filed for divorce 2 weeks after she went to Vermont. Didn't even bother coming back. Just had papers served at the house. My son called me crying again, said he couldn't believe she'd abandoned him when he needed her most. I could believe it. I'd seen exactly what kind of person Sarah was the moment she slapped me at the wedding. Maybe before that. Maybe always. Some people are just takers. Just users. Just parasites looking for a host. My son had married his female equivalent, and now they were both getting exactly what they deserved. The divorce was ugly. Sarah claimed she'd had no idea about the embezzlement, said she was a victim too, said my son had deceived her about his finances and his business practices, painted herself as an innocent wife betrayed by a criminal husband. The judge didn't buy it entirely. The prenup she'd insisted on protected her from most of his debts, but the judge awarded my son the house and most of the liquid savings as compensation for her adultery. Sarah walked away with almost nothing. Just her car and her clothes and her shame. Justice, in its own strange way. But I wasn't done yet. Robert Chen and I met at a coffee shop downtown 6 months after the wedding. He looked older, more tired, but there was satisfaction in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Empty." "That's normal. Revenge doesn't fill the hole. It just proves the hole exists. You think destroying them will make you feel better, make you feel whole again. But it doesn't. You just end up more alone than before." "Is that supposed to be comforting?" "It's supposed to be true. You did what you set out to do. Your son lost everything, his business, his wife, his reputation, his freedom, possibly, depending on how the criminal case goes. You won. Then why doesn't it feel like winning? Because he's still your son, and part of you still loves him, even though you hate what he became, even though you hate what he did. You can't turn off 30 years of being a father just because you're angry." He was right. I'd destroyed my son's life and felt nothing but a vast, aching emptiness where satisfaction should have been. I'd thought revenge would heal something, would give me some sense of justice or closure or peace. It hadn't. It had just made me feel more alone. "What about you?" I asked. "Did you get what you wanted?" "I got to watch the man who destroyed my son do the same thing to his own. That's something. Not enough. Nothing would be enough. My son is still lifeless. Your wife is still lifeless. We're both old men with nothing left but memories and regrets." So what was the point? The point was that actions have consequences. Your son learned that. You learned that. Maybe that's all we can hope for in this life. That people eventually learn there's a price for hurting others. We finished our coffee in silence. When we left, Robert shook my hand. "Goodbye, David. I don't think we'll meet again." "Why not?" "Because my work is done. I came here to watch you suffer the way I suffered, to see you lose your family the way I lost mine, and I've seen it. There's nothing left for me here." He walked away. I never saw him again. 6 months later, I got a call from a lawyer in Florida. Robert Chen had died. Heart attack. Alone in a small apartment with nobody to find him for 3 days. The lawyer was settling his estate. Robert had left me something in his will. A letter. I opened it with shaking hands. "David," it read, "if you're reading this, I'm lifeless." Good. I'm tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of remembering. Tired of the weight of what happened to Thomas. I hope I see my son again, though I'm not sure I believe in that kind of thing. I wanted you to know that I don't hate you anymore. I did for 40 years. But watching you destroy your own son taught me something. We're all just people doing terrible things to each other. You to me to you to your son to you. It's just pain creating more pain creating more pain. An endless cycle. I'm glad to be done with it. I hope you find a way to be done with it too. Robert. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer, next to Margaret's wedding ring, next to the file Mitchell had compiled on my son, next to all the evidence of all the terrible things people do to each other. My son declared bankruptcy 3 months later. The criminal investigation stalled out. The prosecutor decided it wasn't worth pursuing. The embezzlement was relatively small scale. The clients would get some money back through bankruptcy proceedings. A civil lawsuit was more appropriate than criminal charges. My son wouldn't go to prison, but he'd be in debt for the rest of his life. He moved into a small apartment on the bad side of town, got a job selling insurance, started over at 53 with nothing. No business, no wife, no reputation, no future. Just survival, just existence. Just the slow grind of paying debts and living in a studio apartment and working a job he hated for people who didn't respect him. Everything I'd had at his age, he'd lost. Everything I'd given him, he'd thrown away. Everything he'd taken for granted was gone. My daughter stopped speaking to me, told me I was a monster, that I'd destroyed her brother for no reason, that our mother would be ashamed, that she never wanted to see me again. Maybe she was right. Probably was. Margaret would have been horrified by what I'd done. Margaret believed in forgiveness, in second chances, in family above everything else. But Margaret was lifeless, and I was alive, and I'd made my choice. I could live with being a monster if it meant teaching my son that betrayal has consequences, that you can't treat people like garbage and expect them to keep loving you, that fathers aren't just wallets with legs. I sold the big house a year after Margaret died, couldn't stand being there anymore. Every room held memories that hurt to look at. Her favorite chair by the window where she'd read in the afternoons. The garden she'd spent hours tending. The kitchen where she'd made Sunday dinners for the family back when we were still a family. I moved into the downtown apartment, the one my son and Sarah had wanted so badly. It felt appropriate somehow, living in the space they'd tried to take from me, a quiet victory in the ruins of everything else. The apartment was modern, clean, empty. I'd brought almost nothing from the old house. Some clothes, a few books, Margaret's wedding ring, the photos from when the kids were young, before everything got complicated, starting over at 73. Most people would think that was crazy. Maybe it was. But the alternative was staying in that house full of ghosts and regrets and might-have-beens. This was better. Lonely, but better. My lawyer called me one afternoon about 18 months after the wedding, after everything had collapsed, after the bankruptcy and the divorce and the criminal investigation and all of it. "Your son's bankruptcy is finalized," he said. "All debts discharged except the restitution to his clients. That'll follow him forever." "How much?" $83,000. He'll be making payments until he dies, most likely. The amount he can pay depends on his income. Right now, he's paying about $200 a month. At that rate, it'll take him 34 years to pay it off. He'll be in his 80s. Good. Is it? Good, I mean. Does this feel good to you? No. But it feels right. It feels like justice. Justice for who? For you? For your wife? For the clients he stole from? For all of us. For everyone he hurt. For everyone he used. For everyone he treated like they didn't matter. You destroyed your son's life. No. I stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. There's a difference. The lawyer sighed. If you say so. Anyway, the bankruptcy is done. Thought you'd want to know. I hung up and looked around my apartment. Afternoon sun coming through the windows, view of the river, sounds of the city below. A life that was mine, that nobody had taken from me, that I'd chosen. My son tried to contact me a few times over the next year. Letters mostly. I didn't read them, couldn't see the point. What was there to say? Sorry? Forgiveness? We were past all that. Past the possibility of reconciliation, past the point where words meant anything. He'd made his choices. I'd made mine. Now we both had to live with them. My daughter sent me a birthday card the year after I moved downtown. Just a card, no letter, no phone call, just her signature and a generic happy birthday message, a formality, an obligation fulfilled, nothing more. I sent her a thank you note, equally brief, equally formal. That's what revenge costs, not just the person you destroy, but everyone around them, everyone connected to them. The whole family tree withers and dies. But I'd known that going in. Robert Chen had warned me. Mitchell had warned me. My own conscience had warned me. I'd done it anyway. 2 years after the wedding, someone knocked on my apartment door. Early evening. I wasn't expecting anyone. Hadn't been expecting anyone for months. Years, really. My social life had shrunk to nothing. Former colleagues had stopped calling. Friends had drifted away. Everyone knew what I'd done to my son. Everyone had opinions about it. Most of those opinions weren't favorable. I opened the door expecting a delivery or a neighbor with a package that had been misdelivered. Instead, I found my son. He looked older. Much older than 2 years should account for. There was gray in his hair that hadn't been there before. Lines around his eyes and mouth. The weight of failure and debt and a life that hadn't turned out the way he'd planned. "Dad," he said, "what do you want?" "To talk. Just 5 minutes, please." I should have closed the door. Should have told him to leave and never come back. Should have stuck to the plan. No contact, no forgiveness, no reconciliation. But I didn't. Something in his face stopped me. Not manipulation this time. I'd seen his manipulation enough to recognize it. This was something else. Something genuine. Defeat, maybe. Or acceptance. Or just exhaustion with fighting a war he couldn't win. I let him in. He stood in my living room looking around, taking in the space he'd wanted so badly 2 years ago, the river view, the modern furniture, the life I'd built without him. "Nice place," he said. "Say what you came to say." "I'm not here to apologize. I know you won't accept it anyway. I know what I did. I know what you did. I'm not asking for forgiveness." "Then what are you asking for?" "Nothing. I just wanted you to know I understand now. What you did. Why you did it." "Do you?" "I think so. I was entitled, selfish, arrogant. I thought the world owed me something just for existing. I thought you owed me something just for being your son. I thought I could do whatever I wanted, and there would never be consequences because you'd always be there to fix it. And now? Now I'm selling insurance in a strip mall and living in a studio apartment and paying $200 a month for the rest of my life to people I stole from. Now I know what consequences feel like. Now I understand that nobody owes me anything, that everything I had was a gift that I threw away because I didn't value it. Good lesson. Expensive, but good. Did you have to teach it so hard? Did you have to destroy everything? Did you learn it any other way? Would anything less have gotten through to you? He smiled, sad and tired and honest for maybe the first time in his life. No, probably not. I was too far gone, too convinced of my own importance, too certain that the rules didn't apply to me. We stood there in silence, father and son. "I can't forgive you," I said. "I know. And I don't regret what I did. I know that too. Then why are you here?" "Because you're my father. And I'm your son. And that means something, even if it doesn't mean what it used to. Even if it can never mean what it used to. It means nothing now. Maybe. But I had to try. Had to see if there was anything left. Any possibility of, I don't know, not reconciliation, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement, maybe. That we both exist. That we're both living with what happened. We're both living with what happened, I repeated. You're living with debt and failure. I'm living with the knowledge that I destroyed my own son. Those aren't equivalent. Aren't they? You got your revenge. You won. But you're alone in this apartment with nobody who loves you, nobody who visits, nobody who cares. At least I have the possibility of building something new, Starting over. You can't start over from this. Can't undo what you did. Can't rebuild what you burned down. He was right. I'd won the war and lost everything that mattered. He'd lost the war but still had time to build a different life. A smaller life, a harder life, but a life nonetheless. I should go, he said. I didn't come here to fight. Just wanted you to know that I understand, that I'm trying to be better. Wait, I said. He stopped at the door, turned back. Are you okay? Really okay, I mean. Not happy, not successful, just surviving. I'm surviving. It's hard. Some days I don't want to get out of bed. Some days I think about just walking into traffic and ending it. But I get up. I go to work. I make my payments. I keep going because that's all there is. Just keep going until eventually you die. That's bleak. That's realistic. That's life for people who destroyed everything and have to start over with nothing. But I'm doing it. I'm making it work. I'm becoming someone different. Someone better, maybe. Someone who understands that actions have consequences. He left, walked out of my apartment and my life. I watched him go from the window, watched him get into an old Honda with a dent in the fender and drive away. That night, I took out Margaret's wedding ring, looked at it for a long time, remembered the woman who'd worn it, the life we'd built, the children we'd raised, the dreams we'd had. What would she think of what I'd done? She'd be devastated. Would tell me I'd gone too far. That revenge isn't justice. That destroying our son wasn't the answer. That family means forgiveness and second chances and love that endures even when it's tested. But Margaret was lifeless. Had been lifeless for more than 2 years now, and I was alive, living with the consequences of my choices, living with the emptiness of victory. I put the ring back in the drawer, closed it, went to bed. Tomorrow I'd wake up and keep going, just like my son, just like everyone who'd been broken and had to figure out how to keep living anyway. 5 years after my son skipped his mother's funeral, I sat in my apartment and looked at the city below. Lights stretching to the horizon. Thousands of lives I'd never touch. Millions of stories I'd never know. All that humanity out there living and loving and hurting each other in ways big and small. My life had become small, manageable, routine. I went to the gym 3 times a week, had coffee with a former colleague once a month, spent my days reading and watching the river and existing in a space between contentment and resignation. My son and I never reconciled, never spoke after that one visit 2 years ago, never rebuilt anything resembling a relationship. The gulf between us was too wide, the damage too deep. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. My daughter sent birthday cards, Christmas cards, generic well-wishes that fulfilled obligation without requiring actual connection. We were family in name only. I had no grandchildren, no family dinners, no one to leave my money to when I died, no one who would mourn me beyond the formality that society demands. I'd won my war and lost everything else. Was it worth it? The question haunted me. Late at night, when sleep wouldn't come. Early mornings when the apartment felt too empty and the silence too loud. Quiet moments when I had nothing to do but think about the choices I'd made and the life I'd chosen. I still didn't know the answer. Maybe there wasn't an answer. Maybe it was just something I'd have to live with until I didn't have to live anymore. What I knew was this. My son had needed to learn that betrayal has consequences, that you can't skip your mother's funeral for a birthday party, that you can't let your wife assault your father and expect forgiveness, that you can't lie and steal and cheat and expect someone to always be there to clean up the mess. I'd taught him those lessons, used every tool at my disposal, watched his life crumble, and felt the cold satisfaction of a job well done. The cost had been everything we'd ever had as a family. But what had we really had? A relationship built on my money and my willingness to fix problems and my inability to say no. That wasn't family. That was enabling, That was dysfunction dressed up as love. So I'd ended it, burned it down, walked away from the ashes and built something new, something smaller and lonelier but honest in a way the old life never was. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Instinct, maybe. Or just curiosity. Or the hope, buried deep, that maybe this time it would be someone who mattered. Mr. Thompson? Yes. This is County General Hospital. Your son was in a car accident. He's asking for you. The words hung in the air. For a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I'd just heard. Is he going to die? I asked. No, sir, but he's hurt. Broken leg, some lacerations, possible concussion. He's stable, but he specifically requested we call you. Said it was important. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up, grabbed my coat and keys, headed for the door, then stopped. Stood there with my hand on the doorknob, asking myself the question I should have asked immediately. Why was I going? What did I owe him? What did either of us owe each other at this point? Nothing. The answer was nothing. We owed each other nothing, had given each other nothing but pain for years now, had destroyed whatever relationship we'd once had, and salted the earth so nothing could grow back. But I went anyway. Drove through the dark streets to the hospital. Found his room on the 3rd floor. Stood in the doorway looking at my son in the hospital bed, leg in a cast elevated on pillows, bandages on his face and arms, bruises starting to purple under his skin. He looked small, vulnerable, human in a way I hadn't let myself see in years. Dad, he said, you came. The hospital called. I know. I was afraid you wouldn't come. Afraid you'd decide this wasn't your problem anymore. That I wasn't your problem anymore. You're not my problem. Haven't been for a long time. Then why are you here? Good question. I didn't have a good answer. Just stood there in the doorway, looking at my son, trying to figure out what I was feeling. Anger? Pity? Regret? Some combination of all three and nothing at all? I don't know, I said finally. Instinct, maybe. You're still my son, even if that doesn't mean what it used to. Come in, please. Just for a minute. I walked into the room. Sat in the plastic chair beside his bed. The room smelled like antiseptic and illness. Machines beeped rhythmically. Outside in the hallway, nurses talked quietly and carts rolled past. What happened? I asked. Drunk driver ran a red light, hit me broadside. I saw it coming but couldn't do anything. Just had time to think, this is going to hurt, and then it did. You're lucky it wasn't worse. Am I? Lucky. Sometimes I think it would be easier if it had been worse. If I'd just died and been done with it. Done with the debt and the shame and the grinding daily reality of being me. Don't talk like that. Why not? It's true. You destroyed my life, Dad. Did what you set out to do. Made sure I lost everything and learned my lesson. And I did learn it. I understand now what I did wrong, how I hurt people, how I hurt you and Mom. I get it. But understanding doesn't make it easier. Doesn't make the debt go away, or give me back my reputation, or fix what's broken. You're alive. You can still build something. Still have a life. What life? I'm 55 years old, working a lifeless end job, living in a studio apartment, paying money. I don't have to people I wronged, eating alone every night, sleeping alone every night, no friends, no family, no future, just existence. I wanted to feel satisfaction, wanted to think, good, that's what you deserve, wanted the cold vindication of knowing my revenge had worked exactly as planned. But I didn't feel that, just felt tired, old, empty. Like we were both prisoners of something neither of us could escape, both living in the ruins of what we'd done to each other. I'm sorry, I said. The words surprised me. Hadn't planned to say them, hadn't even known I was thinking them until they came out. For what? For destroying you so thoroughly. I set out to teach you a lesson, and I did. But maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have stopped before it got this bad. Would it have worked if you'd stopped? Would I have learned anything if you'd just slapped my wrist and let me keep going? I don't know. I do. I wouldn't have learned anything. Would have thought I got away with it. Would have kept being the same selfish, entitled asshole I'd always been. You did what had to be done. Went as far as you needed to go to make sure I understood. I hate you for it, but I also understand it. We sat in silence. The machines kept beeping. The hospital kept being a hospital. The world kept turning like it always did, indifferent to our suffering. I'm not here to reconcile, I said finally. I'm not here to forgive or be forgiven, or pretend we can go back to being father and son the way we used to be. I know. But I'm here. When they called, I came. That has to mean something. Does it? I think so. I think it means that no matter how angry I am, no matter what you did or what I did, you're still my son. That connection doesn't just disappear. It's bent and broken, and maybe it doesn't work anymore, but it's still there. What do we do with that? Nothing. We don't do anything. We just acknowledge it, and then we go back to our separate lives. You heal from this accident and keep paying your debts and building whatever life you can. I keep living in my apartment and being alone and living with what I did. Maybe someday one of us will die and the other will go to the funeral and stand there feeling nothing. Or maybe we'll never see each other again, and it won't matter either way. That's bleak. That's honest. That's where we are. Where my choices and your choices brought us. My son closed his eyes. Tears leaked out from under his eyelids. Not the manipulative crying from years ago. Just quiet, exhausted grief for everything we'd lost. I miss her, he said. Mom, I miss her every day. And I hate that I don't get to miss her with you. That we can't sit together and remember her and be sad together. That you destroyed that possibility along with everything else. You destroyed it first, when you skipped her funeral, when you chose a birthday party over saying goodbye to your mother. I just made sure you understood the cost of that choice. I do understand. I've paid the cost every day for 5 years. I'll keep paying it until I die. Isn't that enough? I don't know. I don't know what's enough. I don't know how to measure suffering or justice or any of it. I just know that we're both here, in this hospital room, and neither of us is happy about it. I stood up, looked down at my son, at the broken man in the hospital bed who'd once been a child I loved more than anything, who'd once made me proud, who'd once been the future I dreamed about when I was young and believed in things like legacy and family. Get better, I said. Heal. Keep going. That's all either of us can do now. Just keep going. Will you visit again? No. Will I ever see you again? Probably not. Okay. His voice was small, defeated, accepting. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye. I walked out of the hospital room, down the hallway, out of the building, into my car. Drove home through streets that all looked the same in the dark. When I got back to my apartment, I sat by the window and watched the sun come up over the city. Watched the lights come on in buildings as people woke up and started their days. Watched the world keep turning the way it always did, indifferent to individual suffering. My son would heal, would go back to his small life. We'd probably never see each other again. The gulf between us was too wide, the damage too permanent. Some things, once broken, stay broken forever. But I'd gone to the hospital. When they called, I'd come. Had sat beside his bed and acknowledged, finally, that he was still my son even if that didn't mean what it used to mean. Maybe that was all I had left. All I could offer. Recognition without reconciliation. Acknowledgement without forgiveness. The bare minimum of humanity between two people who'd destroyed each other. And maybe that had to be enough, because it was all there was. I thought about Margaret, about what she would say if she were here, if she could see what we'd become, what I'd done to our family in the name of justice. She'd be heartbroken. would tell me I'd become exactly what I hated, had destroyed our son as thoroughly as I'd once destroyed Robert Chen's son, had perpetuated the cycle of pain and revenge and destruction that Robert had tried to warn me about. And she'd be right, but she wasn't here, was buried in a cemetery across town under a stone that said, "Beloved wife and mother." Our children didn't visit her grave. Neither did I. Too painful. Too full of might-have-beens and should-have-beens, and the weight of choices that couldn't be unmade. The sun was fully up now. Morning in the city. People going to work, living their lives. Most of them would never know the kind of pain my family had inflicted on itself. Would never understand how completely you could destroy someone you loved. Lucky them. I made coffee, read the newspaper, did the crossword puzzle, lived another day that looked exactly like all the others. Alone, but not lonely. Empty, but not unhappy. Existing in that space between what was and what might have been. My son had asked if understanding was enough, if recognizing his mistakes and paying for them was sufficient. I didn't know. Still didn't know. Maybe there was no amount of suffering that balanced the scales. Maybe justice was just a story we told ourselves to make sense of the chaos. Maybe revenge was just pain creating more pain, exactly like Robert Chen had said. But I'd done it anyway, had destroyed my son as thoroughly as I knew how, had watched him lose everything and felt that cold satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly. And now I was sitting in my apartment alone, drinking coffee and doing crossword puzzles and waiting to die. If this was victory, it felt a lot like defeat. But it was my defeat, my choice, my consequence. And I'd live with it until I didn't have to live anymore. That was the final accounting, the last step. The end of the road I'd chosen when I decided revenge mattered more than family. I'd gotten exactly what I wanted, and lost everything that mattered. The universe, in its infinite irony, had balanced the scales after all.